This is Andi Purewal for ID Boxing. I'm joined by David Price over Zoom. David, as always, it's a pleasure. How are things going?
Yeah, not bad, mate. All good. All good. You okay?
All good. It's obviously the weekend. Have you got much? Are you up to much?
No, mate. Just chilling out, enjoying resting after a busy week. When work, the rat race, as we call it, little chill out the weekend, and then back to back at it Monday, like. But yeah, all good.
Well, I'm glad to hear that things are going well, and obviously the fight schedule's picking up now. It's been a few weeks worth of shows, and just to get straight into, obviously we had a big press conference this week of Anthony Joshua and Jermaine Franklin. David, your thoughts for AJ's comeback on the back of his 2 defeats to Alexander Usyk?
Yeah, it's a bit of a common sense approach. I think what they've taken there with the choice of opponents. It's a safe fight for him, and you know. Andy Joshua by right should absolutely obliterate someone like Jermaine Franklin because he's the perfect style for Andy Joshua. Slow feet, methodical fighter, and easier to read than you Usyk. Than some of the fighters Joshua's been fighting in the last whatever many years. It's all been big, high pressure title fights. This is one where he can kind of like express himself a little bit more. He ran Dillian-Whyte close, so he's bringing some of his own credibility into the fight in that way. He was arguing that he won the fight. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm
Back
still
on
there.
off. Fucking hell, you look like a mannequin then. I thought if froze, you can edit that out if you want. But yeah, no, yeah, he could argue that he won the fight against Dillian-Whyte. He said he thinks he did. If he got blasted out by Dillian-Whyte, he wouldn't have even been considered for AJ. But yeah, I think he'll do the job of making Joshua look good. Finding the speed with his new trainer. He'll be able to get his combination punches off because he's not going to be someone who's moving like Usyk has been. And for 2 years, he's been practicing and training towards a Usyk fight. Now this will be like kind of hitting a heavy bag for him, I feel. And I think we'll see an explosive performance because it's tailor-made.
When you mentioned an explosive performance, what would be your prediction of that? Because a lot of people are expecting to see AJ look good and to get that stoppage victory at some point with Franklin.
Yeah, I believe so as well. I mean, since the Ruiz fight, he's won the return with Ruiz. He stopped Pulev in devastating fashion. I thought he performed really well in that fight, and I think he's performed well in all of his fights, especially the second Usyk fight. The first Usyk fight was more people talking about his bad performance than Usyk's fantastic performance, but he's a high-level performer and he performs consistently well at a high level. And this will be a walk in the park for him, but he just needs to not be complacent because anything can happen in heavyweight boxing. We've seen this weekend talking about his motivation being money and money alone, but I think I've seen Matthew Macklin saying, well, money being a motivation on its own, it's one thing if you've got no money, but if you've already got loads of money, is it really a motivation? But who knows what's going on in AJ's head? He seems to me like he's got a bit of his chip on his shoulder, to be honest, and he's going to want to prove a point. It's like he's pissed off with the critics and the constant criticism towards him. Because he's gone from being the golden boy of British boxing to kind of like a bit. People disrespect him a little bit because he's lost twice to someone as good as Usyk. So he's kind of like got a point to prove, and I think it's going to be good to watch this new version of him.
When we mention this new version, a lot of people want to see him kind of go back to what we'd seen pre. Some people argue pre-Klitschko, some say pre-Ruiz, where he was kind of going in there all aggressive, knocking out his opponents, coming forwards, throwing those combinations, something we haven't necessarily seen recently. Obviously, we've seen him team up with Derrick James. What do you make of that move? Do you think Derrick can get him back to being more of a knockout artist?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, the only difference is now is that he's been knocked out himself. So there's always that minor doubt, as much as he can dispel what happened in the Ruiz fight deep down, when he's getting caught in fights and buzzed and everything else, he's gonna remember what happened, and that alone can take away that kind of killer instinct, where people become not so much gun shy, but just a little bit more careful because they're a bit more wary of what can go on. It was like Vladimir Klitschko earlier in his career. If you watch some of his earlier fights, he was a wrecking machine, an absolute and like unbelievable explosive puncher, and he worked throughout his career. But then it was only when he got stopped them couple of times, the Lamont Brewster fight where he was exhausted, falling down the ring. It was after that. The Corey Sanders fight, after them fights, he adopted this safety first approach, and he had that off to a T. And that was just because of his discipline. He was so disciplined, but I don't think, in fact, no, AJ could keep that approach and be all about the results and performing functionally. I know it's great for us watching him knock people over and blasting people out, but the reality is, once you're at a certain level, you can't keep doing that because your opponents are too good for the start. You're not fighting some fucking Italian in the O2 or whoever else he was fighting early in his career. You're fighting seasoned, quality, world-class heavyweights who know how to ride the shots and know that when you're throwing that 1-2, they know what's coming after them. They'll take a little step to the left, step to the right, and they're working instinctively to break your attack down. It's not as easy as it once was. So I don't think we'll ever see that Joshua again, because it was a different time and it was a different situation who he was fighting. We were too close to it against this fella. That's why I think he's tailor-made for the job. But I think he needs to just focus on his boxing, and he can win fights with his jab. You've seen it with the second Ruiz fight. It's all about results. It wouldn't be about looking fantastic. It was one thing that I came to a conclusion at the end of my own career. Instead of wanting to look great and eye-catching shots and everything else, it's about winning rounds, getting it, hitting and not being hit, and that's the name of the game. So I think with the wiser, older head on his shoulders, he should just stick to this, performing functionally to get the result.
One thing people have picked up on from what AJ had to say in the press conference this week is he's motivated by money. That's what's driving him now. That's what's kind of got him back to wanting to be successful in boxing. It's not a side that we've ever seen from AJ. People are picking up on that, saying we've never seen him comment on the financial element of the sport before. Is it a surprise to you that he pointed that out?
That's what I was saying before. Probably because he's already got loads of money. But some people, nothing's ever enough type of thing. And he just wants more and more and more. And he's saying, I like earning money, and that's understandable, don't we all? And if there's that much money on the table for these fights, and he can still get excited by having an extra 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever £1 million in the bank, then good for him. Any motivation is it's motivation, whether it be money, whether it be something else, it's still motivating, it's still getting him out of bed in the morning. That's the main thing. And the day when it comes, when he settles and he goes, don't care anymore about money, and I think to a degree, it's always about the money, not just for him, for everyone. Do you think if let's look at the other top fighters in the world, your Canelos and whoever else. Okay, they've got to have something special about them to keep performing at that level when they have still got the money and all that property and whatever else they've got to step for life, and they've still got to get out of bed in the morning. But do you think they'd be doing it if they weren't getting paid? There's just no way. It is always about the money. So, yeah, he's being honest, and he's only human at the end of the day. He's played this portrayal over the years of he has been humble and he's been modest, and he got a lot of money very quickly, and he never ever let it be part of his persona. But it might be the new new AJ, mightn't it? Like the Money Mayweather. He might go all bling on us. Who knows?
David, one thing which I'm interested to get your thoughts on as well is if, say, AJ comes back and he stops Franklin in a stunning fashion, we know there's been talk about the Joshua-Whyte fight. If AJ was to do so, does that take away from the kind of how well you can sell a potential Joshua-Whyte 2 fight? Because we saw when Dillian fought Jermaine Franklin, it was a very close one, and a lot of people felt Jermaine had done enough to be successful. So you've got a tight decision fight there, and then on the other hand, you've got AJ who's gone and stopped him. Can you still sell a Joshua-Whyte 2 fight on the back of that?
Yeah, he's still a massive name in his own right, and you can't judge Dillian Whyte off one performance. Styles make fights, so he's going to suit AJ more than he suited Dillian. There's multiple reasons, and then you only have to look back the other month. Tyson Fury had beat Derrick twice, and the fight's and fought him again. The fight's still sold. People still watched it. People will watch it. And they're at different stages in their careers as well. You know, it's going to have people intrigued no matter what. Dillian Whyte can end a fight with one punch as well, with that left hook. You know, nearly done Joshua in the first fight. It was a great fight until the fight was stopped. So I think so. I don't think you can read too much into common opponents and he stopped him, so we shouldn't be fighting him because he only beat him on points. It's got to be about the two members to be in match with each other. And the last time out, it was a good match. So why not do it again?
Moving forward and away from Joshua-Whyte, get your thoughts on another big heavyweight fight on the horizon, Joe Joyce and Joyce-Zhang. Your take on that is a great fight. Nobody's expecting to go very far, but we expect it to be fun whilst it lasts.
Yeah, it's the word of the fight is fun, innit? It's going to be a fun fight. The two big, solid, kind of both slow in a mad way. Well, not in a mad way. They just are both slow to look at. But Joe Joyce's timing and accuracy is second to none. And I don't think the big shots will be landed by both, but he'll just break Zhang down. You know, I've said every time I've been on this with you, I've been called, you know, championing Joe Joyce since he turned pro. I think he's going to take a lot of. It's going to take something special to beat him, and it's not going to be Zhang. But he's a big, strong menace himself. You know, he had hard lines last time out against Ergovic. Big thudding shots, but the punches that you can see coming. Don't get me wrong, we won't get it by one. But if you can see them coming and you can anticipate and embrace and maybe ride it a little bit, he hasn't got the hand speed to trouble Joe Joyce. It's going to take someone with really fast hands to land shots from out of the periphery of his vision. That'll be the ones that has hurt him, and that ain't going to come from him. But it is a great fight, that cracking fight.
David, away from that and looking at the top of the division, obviously we're still waiting for an official announcement with regards to Fury-Usyk. A fight of that magnitude, David, for as much as we've been told it's close and we're expecting an announcement soon, are you surprised it hasn't quite gotten over the line yet?
No, I'm not surprised because, like you just said, it's the magnitude of it. You're talking like your Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather type of fight. You know, it's not far off that. It's the first undisputed heavyweight fight in God knows how many years. So it's not going to get made overnight. It's sort of long. This has been a long time in the making. Loads of little different things happening along the way to get to this point. You know, both of them winning, or continuously winning. Tyson Fury having time out of the ring, and while he had that time out the ring, British boxing seemed to explode. Stadium fights were happening, you know, while he was waiting. Then he come back and kind of captured the public's imagination, and it's all led to this big mega undisputed fight. So it weren't just going to be a matter of signing a couple of contracts. There's obviously a lot to be negotiated. What happens after the fight? You know, what are the options for the loser? What are the options for the winner? So it's one of them. It's a patience thing. You've got to be patient with these things, and hopefully they'll be worth the wait.
Obviously, heading into it, a lot of people are favouring Tyson, and they just see it as he will know how to use his size and his reach to his advantage, something that Anthony Joshua maybe never quite did enough of. Do you think people are, I don't want to say discrediting Alexander Usyk, but are almost overlooking how talented he is just because of how good we know Tyson is?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's being said though is kind of like common sense opinion on the fight, because he is brilliant at using his height and his size and his reach. And no one, I wouldn't come out here and say he's a better, more skilled boxer than Usyk, because you could argue he isn't. It's just that in the match, between the matchup between them, there's nothing they both probably got as good as an engine as each other. They both probably got as good as boxing skills as each other, as chin as each other. But the one thing tipping in Fury's favour is the size element, being a big man, being the big heavyweight, being able to use his size to his advantage, also being able to use, his infighting tactics to his advantage. A little bit of a dirty fighting strategy, which Usyk isn't really clued up on, like I've said before, because he comes from the Olympic school of boxing. He can't teach that type of thing. Fury's got it down to a fine art. So I don't think it's a matter of discrediting Usyk, because we all know how good he is. But it's just a matter of like looking at it and going from a logical standpoint. Is the big man going to beat? Is the good big one going to beat the good little one? Like the old story goes, the old cliche. And I think people are looking at it that way.
Away from that, and we've got a potential MMA star crossing over in Francis Ngannou, who's spoken openly about his desires to face one of the best in Fury, Wilder, or Joshua. What are your thoughts on if we do see him cross over, face one of those guys, David?
Yeah, I mean, it's not new now, is it? In this day and age, to see kind of like not novelty fights, but in this instance, but it's something different. Does he deserve a shot against these fighters when other heavyweights have been, playing the trade, working their apprenticeship over the years and getting in positions to fight in these big fights and being overlooked because the big man from the UFC has made a big name for himself in another sport? And it's like, it's kind of like the YouTube elements of things. People will watch it, and he has got his own credentials, but it's not boxing, but because it's like a bit of it's different, it's a novelty, people are going to want to see it. But the reality is, if it's a boxing match, there's only going to be one winner if he fights any of them fighters, because they're boxers and he's not. But if it was the other way around, there'd only be one winner. But again, it'd be a novelty act. It'd be fun. Why not? With these YouTubers, people are coming out in forces to watch these misfits and everything else. Boxing's got that attraction, hasn't it? But this one brings a bit more credibility than two novice fighters just getting in, because number one, we know he'd be able to hold a punch, and number two, he'd be able to defend himself and throw a punch. So, but it'd be a formality. It'd be a big shock if he beat a top level boxer. But if he did, who knows? It just opened the door for more and more of these events to happen.
Mentioning the crossover side of the sport there, and one fight which we've got coming up in a matter of weeks is Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. Just a lot of pressure on young Tommy's shoulders. Obviously, a lot's been said about what his family will do or won't do, rather, if he was to be unsuccessful. What do you make of it now that it's only a couple of weeks away?
I think him and other people need to look past Jake Paul's previous life before he was, because people need to start acknowledging that he is now a boxer. How many fights has he had?
Jake, I think he's had around 6 or 7.
Right, so he's had 6 or 7 fights with no amateur experience. But how many young fighters in Tommy Fury's position have been put in with someone who's 6 and 7 and 0, had no amateur experience, but they're from Latvia or they're from, you know, wherever, Slovakia. You know, if someone with limited experience got put in with another undefeated fighter, and they were like, big puncher, this fella, you know, but he had no amateur fights, then people would respect it more. But because of his previous life or previous, you know, non-boxing career, it's getting dismissed that it should just be the boxer wins. The boxer who's been a boxer since he was a kid has to win, but it's not that simple. It's not that simple. And also, you've got to accept that he looks okay. Jake Paul, he's strong and definitely it, and he's taking it serious. You know, let's talk about what we were saying before about Joshua saying money was his motivation. Jake Paul's got probably more money than all the boxers, but he's still finding it in him to want to do it. He's motivated. Look, I'm not saying he's going to be a world champion, but Tommy Fury, rather than people focusing on what's going to happen if he loses, they need to applaud that he's taking the fight, regardless of the money, because it's a big banana. It's a big risk. So yeah, it should be taken like a good undercard fight on a good show. I'd pay to watch it. It's one of them. If you went to a world title fight and that was on the undercard, I'd get in early to watch it, because it's two young undefeated fighters who were both confident and both are desperate for the win.
I don't obviously know how much of either of them you've watched, David, but do you have any kind of way that you lean towards who you think will come out on top?
I've seen more of Tommy Fury. I've seen Tommy Fury sparring in the gym quite a bit with Thomas Hart when it was towards the end of my career in the East Thunder, and I thought he had something, you know, that was in the gym. So when I can see he's got the ability. Seen some of his fights where fighting fighters who aren't bringing the best out of you, like as you know, earlier in your career, that you're trying to survive. Jake Paul's had the luxury of having fighters who, you know, maybe come and have a little bit of a go, I suppose, leave themselves open. Big knockouts against, again, MMA fighters, but still, whether they're an MMA fighter or not, they've been getting punched with the 4-ounce MMA gloves for years, taking kicks to the head, taking fucking knees to the head, this, that, and that. So can't tell me that Jake Paul isn't a big puncher when he's knocking these fellas out who were conditioned to take punishment. So he's the bigger puncher. I think, I don't know, I'm sitting on the fence a little bit. But I think the questions will be answered when Tommy Fury starts landing punches on Jake Paul's chin, because he hasn't really been it yet. And I know Tommy Fury will have been it a hell of a lot of times in his life, boxing, in the gym, sparring, everything, all that. He's got the more. He's got the more. What's the word? He's got more experience in being a fighter, and I think it'll tell when he starts landing a shot on Jake Paul.
David, once again, moving forwards and looking towards next weekend, we see a big fight between Leigh and Mauricio Lara. Now, we know about the dangers Mauricio Lara has with that stunning stoppage victory against Josh Warrington a couple of years ago, and Leigh just continues to kind of climb up the rankings with his WBA world title as well now. Just your thoughts on that fight there?
I think it's a good fight. It's a dangerous fight for Leigh. But, you know, at that level, again, every fight's going to carry its own dangers. But the fact that he stopped Josh Warrington, he shocked him, you know, he's going to have to be switched on. It's a big banana skin for him, which could potentially, you know, topple the Josh Warrington fight, which is a big domestic fight. So, but he proved last time out, or has he fought since the Conlon fight? Leigh Wood, if he hasn't, that Conlon fight will have taken his confidence to an entire new level. You know, I remember watching Leigh Wood getting stopped by Gavin McDonnell a while ago. Gavin and James McDonnell were great fighters, but he just got broken down. But I remember seeing and thinking he had skills and ability. but I never thought he'd come this far. So his confidence now, he's just going to grow again, especially if he can do a number on Lara. And it's a good common opponent for them to, what, like we were talking before about common opponents. It's a talking point going into the fight if the Warrington fight comes up.
Again, moving forwards and away from that, we see Callum Smith returning your hometown of Liverpool on March the 11th. Purewal, Stepien, we don't expect him to cause Callum many problems, but we know if Callum comes through, the Beterbiev fight is only around the corner. We expect to see that one in the summertime. Just your take on how you feel Callum will fare against Beterbiev and what you're hoping to see on March 11th against Stepien.
Yeah, obviously it's one of them fights just to get keep Callum busy, but it's got a hell of a lot engine on it. We can't afford to make any mistakes, any slip ups, and then there's a lot of pressure going into a fight when there's a big fight down the corner. So there's injuries, making sure the training's taken care of properly without going too far over training. But they know what they're doing, obviously. But it's about getting the win. It's not about being in a war, not having to look fantastic. It's about get in and get the win, come out, and then focus on the next job in hand, which Beterbiev. I think the timing couldn't be any better for Callum with Beterbiev. He's a wrecking machine, he's a terror. But Callum Smith, out of all the fighters, is the one person you'd say, right, I'd fancy him against Beterbiev, because it's the style of Callum Smith. We know about the catch and counter. How many people he's knocked out with that. And I think Beterbiev is a prime candidate to take one of them on the chin. I've seen Callum Johnson has had Beterbiev over. Anyone can be hurt. So yeah, I think it'd be an exciting fight as well, because Callum Smith will hold his feet. Callum, for someone tall, he'll hold his feet and tuck up really well, but he'll stand his ground and then start firing back with his own counters as his opponents don't. So great fight, but I can see Callum Smith knocking him out, because he's been in wars after war over the years. Beterbiev, amateurs, think of the amateur career he's had. Them looking training camps, just like knocking 10 bells of shite out of each other day in 10-ounce gloves. And over the years, it's just like knocking on the door, and eventually someone's going to answer, if that makes sense, because it's the accumulation. And I think he started showing little chinks in the yard fight that I think the time is great for Callum. But whether even it was towards the end of Beterbiev, Callum's style would have a great chance of beating him anyway.
Moving back,
but I am biased. I am a bit biased.
David, moving back down to Callum's old weight division, we've got David Benavidez and Caleb Plant towards the end of March. Again, a great fight, one which has everybody talking. Which way do you swing?
Yeah, I think it's got people talking, and because there's a lot of needle in it. People love like trash talk, don't they? And needle and spitefulness in fights, and people love it, like, and understandably so. It is exciting, but yeah, I'm leaning towards Plant. Seems to have a bit of a older head on his shoulders, been in with the better fighters, and obviously been in with Canelo, gave a good account of himself. Coming off a brilliant showreel knockout win. But Benavidez is like, he's been the next big thing over there in that division for quite some time. I think this could be his coming out party. And it's a big name to do it against. But I'm leaning towards Plant, but it's going to be close. It's going to be close where they might do it again. But it's a good title. It's a good world title fight. Two quality fighters, and I think the styles will gel nicely. I think it's a great fight, that one.
And then just the final one to get your thoughts on, David. Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia, we're still waiting for kind of things to really get officially confirmed. We know they've had a few hiccups over the last few days, but it seems to be all the news seems to be positive and pointing in the right direction. So with that in mind, if we do see that around the middle of April, again, what's your thoughts? Who do you lean towards?
I'm going to lean towards Gervonta Davis. I just think Ryan Garcia's explosive, fast hands, looks the part, really superstar fighter, isn't he? Like Oscar De La Hoya was in the 90s, or obviously without the Olympic gold medal. But I think Gervonta Davis he's got the X factor, as a fighter. And I think when he hits Ryan Garcia, he'll stay it. And, I think he'll do the job. But great fight, and it's great that they're doing it now instead of waiting. Because they're still quite young, aren't they? Still two young men. They're doing it at a great point in their careers, and they'd probably be able to do it again at a later point. But I just thought I do hope it happens. But I'm leaning towards Davis in that fight.
Right, David, we will leave that there now. Leave you to enjoy the rest of your day and evening. I appreciate your time as always.
Cheers, Andy. Yeah, cheers, mate.